SharePoint Conference 2012, here with Mark Miller. We just started having a conversation. This is one of those things where, just get, like Mark says, like, we ought to have a video camera.
Turn the damn camera on and let's get it on.
All right, so here's where it kind of started. We started talking about social, what social means. One of the things that frustrates me about people saying like, well, SharePoint doesn't do social, or just talking about social, I don't have the right tools, is trying to get them to explain, what do you mean by that? What do you think it doesn't do, or what are you trying to do?
Right, but your premise is that SharePoint does 90% of what social.
I never said 90%. I said SharePoint does social. How are you defining? Like, what do you think it doesn't do?
That's where it comes in. And the reason this started is I said I've got a presentation called "How Unsocial Is SharePoint."
Okay.
And the way that presentation starts is define social, and everybody goes, well, Facebook is social, Twitter is social, LinkedIn is social. So if you look at that, if this is the foundation of what social is, does SharePoint do that out of the box? So my answer is flat out no.
So I'll disagree with that, but then I also, like, the problem is, if you define it that way, which is, that is platitudes, meaningless, what does that actually mean? What are you trying to do? Okay. If your goal is like, I want a central community where I can go to one place and I can have the streaming of activities, the things that are happening, capturing. If I'm following, I'm sharing everything. That's what SharePoint 2013 has now as part of the out-of-the-box experience.
Nobody's using 2013.
I know. However, there are third-party solutions that are built out. You have NewsGator and Atini and other products that have done that. But again, is that how you're defining social?
No, I'm defining social the way the world defines social. That when I move into my Facebook platform, when I move into my Twitter platform, we don't have to talk about social.
Yeah.
We say this is what social is, just by definition. So am I looking at?
But that's the wrong way to think about the problem.
No, it's not.
If your definition of social is describing Facebook and Twitter, it's like, well, okay, so what's the business utility of Facebook?
That's my flat-out bottom line, and I'm in agreement with that statement. What is the business?
So what is the business utility of it? So that's why I said, maybe this is a semantic point, but that's why I say, what is the enterprise social activity that you're trying to do?
No, I'm trying to find that answer.
Yeah.
We're in agreement on that.
And I agree. And I'm not saying that there's an answer to it. I agree that the definition of that problem is the fundamental problem with having that discussion about what it is.
If we're talking about social, then do you think the discussion boards in SharePoint work?
That's a different discussion.
No, it's not.
Well, so I preface that by saying that there are third-party solutions that make it work in 2010. Okay. Whether 2010 works out of the box is a different.
Stop. Because then all you're saying is, which now we've got, okay, it's a development platform. If you want to go real social, let's build apps against that.
So what I go back to is, what are you trying to do? If you look at individual pieces, I wrote a chapter in my book about making the blog template work because in 2010 out of the box, it doesn't work.
There you go. That's
right. So, but I go back and I say, what do you mean by social? For some people, team sites is a social activity, central place where we can share lists and content, interact, and assign metadata. That's a social activity.
But the operative word there is can. And the problem is that most people don't, because it's not intuitive enough, it's not useful enough the way it is. And that's why those aren't working.
But is it the role of, this goes back to the platform, the development platform, is it supposed to be the product or supposed to be a platform? Is it supposed to have these canned solutions that do everything you could possibly want it to do out of the box?
No,
I think
you and I are in agreement on that. We've got a development platform. Let's develop apps against it.
Right.
But the dilemma that we have is the message from Microsoft now is SharePoint is going to be social.
So let's talk about 2013 just briefly. So it is more social, I believe, because there are more of those canned, out-of-the-box, does certain things. Does it do everything that's social? No, of course not. But it's closer to that idea. And one of the things that they also went and built, that NewsGator and Nudesic and Atini built, which was that community hub piece. They now have that as a template that's available to everyone.
In real world situations, though, Christian, you know that platform is not going to be used for the next 2 to 3 years. That's
right.
how long
Oh, no, I know. Yeah. So, right.
And by the time that gets rolled out and done, it's going to be too late because we're going to be in a very much shorter cycle than that. You know.
Yeah, no, I don't entirely agree with that. I know what you mean, but yeah, I mean it's so there are, because not every enterprise is at the bleeding edge of where things are. But it all comes back down to, and I would say this, I'm not in a consulting role working for an ISV. You probably hear this more, but when people make comments about, and we need to have more social, I said, what does that even mean?
Okay, I think the gist of this discussion here then is we need to define social.
But
what is social? Is not a platform. Social is a concept.
It's not. It is a concept, and it's going to be different for every organization. So defining it for one is not going to be the definition for another. That's why I say that the social activity might be everything around metadata in the content and custom content types to be able to go in your e-discovery process, and that's the social activity. For others, it's going to be that Facebook-like, Twitter-like experience that you can get now with 2013 or with third-party solutions in 2010. But it just comes down to, if I were a consultant and somebody came and asked me, you can't assume, that you know the answer of what they mean. You have to go through that process of, what does it mean? What are you trying to achieve? What's the business value of that? Because they maybe have this idea that we need a Facebook like Twitter does this thing. We want this Pinterest interface. What are you actually trying to achieve? And once you work through that discussion, what they actually need to drive more business, faster, better, more business, whatever it is trying to do, might be very different from what they've envisioned by looking at Facebook.
Okay.
But anyway, it's an interesting discussion. And I think that what makes it an interesting discussion is that people are really confused.
Let's do something about that.
Let's just go solve it. Yeah, we're going to write one article, it'll solve all of it.